Well, you did pick Oregon to be number 6 before the season started. Now we'll talk about the team that I picked to be number 6. That's my Fighting Irish, squeaking by Toledo, 32 to 29. I don't know if you watched this. It was on Peacock, um, and yeah, a lot of people were very frustrated with that. But with Notre Dame, it's pretty clear. Like the main issue, the first problem, the second problem, and the third problem is the offensive line. And the defense has been a bit underwhelming under Marcus Freeman so far. But I do think there's more hope on the defensive side of the ball because they have most of the time they're playing well. They've had a few lapses and they've given up some big plays. Didn't give up a touchdown to Toledo until the fourth quarter, I believe. But yeah, the offensive line, this is bad. You need a baseline level of offensive line play, I believe, to compete for a playoff or a national title. And I did not expect Notre Dame to be an elite offensive line this year at all. I expected them to be solid. And this is not, we're not seeing a solid offensive line from them. Did you get to watch any of this game? Do you have different thoughts on it?
Just bits and pieces. I think I mainly just saw the highlight of Jack Cohn miraculously popping his finger back in and then going and throwing a touchdown 10 seconds later. That is just freaking awesome. Like how cool. That's a football guy. Like we talk about
Yeah.
football guys, ultimate football guy move. No, yeah, no, I'm with you. I would say the lack of run game and just the lack of offensive line play in particular. It was noticeable against Florida State. Just the pass rush that Florida State could generate, and they didn't with no really big names, and just get pressure just from fairly basic looks. It didn't look like it was no exotic blitzes or anything. It's just fairly basic. They could just line up and get pressure, and yes, that's a huge concern, and that's very surprising. I think for Notre Dame, they always have. There's always first round NFL talent. It seems like on the offensive line, and it is surprising. It's a win though, and sometimes winning on an off night. I know I know you can say you've done this twice now, but you've won when it's very much been in doubt. The outcome has very much been in doubt, and survive and advance a little bit. Like you can worry about your style points later, and there's some things you have to fix, but there's things a lot of people have to fix. I don't know. Is taking a win, is that too simplistic? Is that too easy to apply here? But just being happy with the win here.
Well, it's obviously the win is great. Like you want to win, and it's great to always. It's always better to be making adjustments after you won as opposed to after you lost. The problem is there's cracks in the facade for sure, and you can see like there's kind of a pretty tough stretch coming up after the Purdue game. Even Purdue, I'm not 100% convinced Notre Dame will win, um, but I feel a little bit differently about this team after the Toledo game than I did after Florida State. After Florida State, the offensive line struggled, but you could say, well, Florida State has pretty good athletes in the defensive line. The Georgia transfer, they had some other guys. The South Carolina transfer, they have some guys there, And it's first game, whatever, it happens. When it happened against Toledo, and Toledo is the best team in the MAC, but they're the best team in the MAC. Like you should not have that kind of a struggle with Toledo, and it was bad. Now, I will say, when they did insert Tyler Buckner, the true freshman quarterback, highly ranked 4-star, yeah, everyone thinks he's the future quarterback for Notre Dame, and they inserted him on their own 6-yard line, and he promptly led a 94-yard touchdown drive. Looked really good doing it, and just the threat of his legs actually opened up the running game, so they were able to run the ball after he got in the game. The problem is he's not as developed of a passer right now as Jack Cohn is. And so, I don't think Jack Cohn has done anything wrong. Like, he has not done anything to lose his job. I think he's a good player. They just can't protect him. And when he's in the game, they also can't run the ball because there's no threat of him keeping it. So, yeah, I don't know. At this point, it almost seems like they have to pick an identity. Do you trust Jack Cohn, the senior quarterback, and they have good weapons outside this year, good tight end play, and just hope that the line holds up, and knowing that you probably won't be able to get any rushing, or do you put it in the true freshman's hands, Tyler Buckner, and he's going to make some exciting plays. You're going to be able to run the ball because of the threat of his legs, but you also aren't going to have the senior leadership. You're not going to have the passing game most likely. So I think they'll probably continue to play both. But yeah, I said after last week's game, I felt better about Notre Dame's ceiling and worse about their floor. I feel yet even worse, I think, about their floor now. And to me, the ceiling probably is not there. Like you just offensive line is not something you can just like make an adjustment, and whatever. Like there's a few other guys they could play, but there's bigger issues there. I think a lot of people point to Jeff Quinn, the offensive line coach. So we'll see. We'll see what the future has there for Notre Dame. But I do think that this is probably not a top 10 team as currently constructed this year.
George Karloftis, the defensive end for Purdue, he might have 5 sacks against you guys next week. Just an absolute stud there. No, I think after playing 2 close games, I think you're probably due for just like a blowout win, and Purdue maybe feels like a little overvalued. So like I wouldn't be picking Purdue to beat you, even though you're both 2-0. So
Mhm.
understandable. I think Karloftis he's a stud. He'll have a really good game against you guys. I think you'll be fine. Like I really think you could very easily after one blowout win suddenly feel way better about everything. So that may be my opinion of it.
Yeah, and I do think like if you go down to the starters, Notre Dame versus Purdue, Notre Dame probably has 19 of the 22 starters that are better. It's just that they have David Bell and George Karlaftis, and if you can break a few big plays with David Bell and then get maybe a couple strip sacks with Karlaftis, like that can change an entire game. So we'll see.